Gotta elevate through the challenges. Might bend, but baby, you won't break. It's okay to make all your mistakes.
Hi, welcome to another episode of Dare to Evolve, a sanctuary of genuine connections and heartfelt dialogue. I am your host, Valerie. I am happy to have a very special guest with me here this evening that goes by the name of Dr. Summer Allen, and she will get a chance to present her book, her recently published book. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And it's entitled Lose the Debate. That is a practical guide to emotional intelligence and successful dialogue. Pleasure to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me.
So we're going to jump right into it. But before we talk about a book, tell us more about Dr. Summer Allen.
Wonderful. Thank you. Well, I am born and raised in Dallas. I am a organizational development consultant by trade. But what I do is I own an emotional intelligence leadership consulting firm. I have a doctorate in organizational change and leadership. And so what that does is it drives me to really help individuals become successful leaders and individuals in life. Right now, I'm working on a second doctorate in organizational psychology. And so really that's my passion is education. My passion is working with leaders. And I'm excited to present my book to the world.
There you have it. And we're going to continue and jump, like I said, right into it because when I heard about you, we both have this common friend. Mm-hmm. And when she said that, hey, this beautiful lady is going to be to the island and you have this Dare to Evolve platform and it will be great that you guys get to exchange. So I'm very happy to be able to exchange with you and having to interview you for the first time on your book. So can you tell us about your book?
Absolutely. So Lose the Debate is a book that I wrote during the pandemic. I started it before, but it really accelerated during the pandemic is what I tell people. And it almost shifted gears in terms of what I actually wanted to talk about. So the book is about emotional intelligence, but it's also about having courageous conversations. As we know, during the pandemic, there are a lot of topics that came up between, how do we vaccinate, masks, George Floyd, racial issues. And what I identified in my work, working in diversity, equity, and inclusion, working with leaders, we didn't know how to have those conversations. We didn't know how to really be self-aware and understand what we were feeling and experiencing. So I wrote the book to really help people have conversations that they don't normally have. But what I found is it's not just about those big and heavy topics that people don't necessarily know how to have conversations around. It's even in our personal lives. It's around me needing to have a conversation with my spouse around how we're going to raise our children, or me having a conversation with a sibling around how we're going to take care of our aging parent. And so any conversation that I identify that is difficult, I've noticed in society, we either avoid them or we engage in them, but not necessarily successfully.
When I hear you speak, something that comes to mind is that you mentioned that you wrote the book during the pandemic. Mm-hmm. Is there a reason why?
Yeah, the reason why is because I saw so many people struggling to express themselves in a very thoughtful way that really allowed us to hear one another. It was almost like when the world stopped, we couldn't hear each other.
But you will believe at times as well, at that period of time, you had time actually to spend time with yourself, doing a lot of thinking. Yes. And this brings me to my another question, because when I got the book the first time, I looked and I said, emotional intelligence. Yes. That's so deep.
Yes.
What is emotional intelligence?
Well, let me say, first of all, emotional intelligence is my passion. It is really what I ground my research in. And what emotional intelligence is a person's ability to be able to effectively really understand what their emotions are, to accurately put a name to their emotion, as well as the ability to communicate that emotion to another person. But it's also the ability to understand the emotions of another person. So I call it inside out work. And so it's really our ability to have a heightened sense of self-awareness, that I can walk through the world, I can understand who I am, I can understand my traumas, I can understand my triggers, I can understand what I'm feeling, and I can process through that in a healthy way where I can share that with another person. It's our ability to set boundaries and our ability to be curious. And so it's all about us.
You're hitting the nails on the head because when I hear that, it is so difficult for someone to actually make themselves vulnerable.
Absolutely.
And talking about emotional intelligence is actually, first of all, being entwined with yourself, having this truthful conversation with yourself. So you can first understand what you've been trying to just sweep under the rug, and only then you can at some point share. And I believe during the pandemic, all of us being closed in, and we had a lot of time to think.
Yes.
Also about the importance of life, and maybe envision things a bit different. You know, am I at a place where I am at peace or comfortable, or do I even know who I am?
Right.
So when you link this book that you wrote and the title and the direction in which you want to go, it makes so much sense in the period that it actually came out. So tell us some more. Tell us really what motivated you to not only write this, but an experience that was like a wake up call to you and was like, this is actually really needed.
Yeah. I saw it in the media. I saw it with friends. I saw it with the clients that I had. Again, just the challenge to be able to process the experiences that they were having, process what is some of the historical context that I have or some of my past trauma that may be bubbling up. Yeah. Because in the pandemic, what a lot of us didn't realize is we were in survival mode. And when the body is in survival mode, all of our trauma responses have a tendency to flush to the front. And so however I have dealt with experiences of like extreme tension, whether it was good or bad, it's going to show. And so we saw people shopping excessively. We saw people eating excessively because they were just trying to cope. Because what they weren't really capable of doing is addressing the actual emotion and the experience at the time that they were having it.
But when you were thinking about writing this book, were you at a place where you had already done the work on yourself and you knew that, okay, this is a time to share. I need to be able to document all of this and help someone move forward? Because too much time, we actually go down the line of trying to encourage others, but then we realize that we get trapped in this whole process because we're not theirs yet
ourselves.
So were you at a place where you were able to share, or it was double, meaning that you worked on yourself while you try to help people figure it out?
I think that's a really good question. And the way I would answer that is when it comes to emotional intelligence in general, it is a continuous process. It is never something that you will 100% master because we are humans and we are ever evolving and the conversations are ever changing. Our relationships are transforming. And so as a result of that, you're always relearning yourself in different iterations of your life. Now, what I will say when it came to writing the book, I was 100% ready to write the book, but I feel like the pandemic really accelerated that. It really showed me, okay, the world needs this. Like we've been moving so fast, we didn't really even see that we weren't connecting honestly with ourselves and with each other. But when the world shut down and it stopped, it was like, okay, now I see it. And we need this.
Yeah. You know, I think a lot of people, a lot about those that, let's say, live alone. And imagine that I'm from St. Martin and maybe I'm in away studying and I'm in my own dorm, I'm in my own room and my family is not here. I can't travel, so I'm alone. And for the first time, I'm spending time with myself.
There you go.
For the first time, I'm spending time with myself. So, and when I say that, and you can add to this, it is then self-discovery and even sitting alone with yourself to know that you're your own company, that it becomes challenging because then sometimes you just cannot. You're so accustomed of being surrounded with people because busy because you have a work to do, but also because you're covering something up.
There you go.
You know, because when you sit quietly, then you must allow yourself to feel.
A lot of people experience that because like you said, we have intentionally kept ourselves so busy. Those are called distractions. We intentionally distract ourselves. So we do all these things so that we don't have to sit in our own thoughts. And so that happened for a lot of people, that discomfort of that solitude set in. But it also happened even in families. It was like, we're so busy. Everybody has a schedule. Our kids are 10 million places. Now everyone is at home in the same place. And it's like, we don't really know what to talk about. Or when we are talking, it's not thoughtful, or we're not connecting it in the right way. And so I think we just really learned a lot about ourselves and those that we're in proximity to, and how we're really connecting with one another.
Is there a part of your book? I mean, it's your book.
Yeah.
So the entire book has to be quite interested to you and speak of a specific time or a topic that you really want to tackle. But is there a part in this book that actually, if you read this part, it puts the icing on the cake and you will understand where you wanted to go with it?
Oh, that is a good question. Because like you said, it is my book. And, when someone writes a book, the whole book is good. Like that. But if I had thought about, one of the components, the funny thing is when I read the book and I read it over and over again, even though I wrote it, I do these interviews. So I go in and find different pieces. It's still the very first part to me. It's the how to use this book, because in that part, it talks about it defines emotional intelligence. It defines courageous conversation, but it talks about the power of our perspectives.
Exactly. Exactly.
That is the foundation. That and curiosity are the foundations of this book, because what it's going to tell you is this book is not about how to convince somebody else how to do something, how to win an argument, how to influence somebody. This book is about you. This is self-work.
You said the power of perspective and also curiosity. How do both of them merge? How?
So the power of perspective is curiosity. They are one and the same. The power of perspective is you allowing yourself to really look at your past, to understand what are the experiences that I've had in my life that have formed my perspective. And then I really shuffle through that perspective to say, is this valid? Am I holding on to traumas or somebody else's experiences that I might need to let go of? Do all of these things serve me? Is my perspective clear? Is my perspective open enough? Because we walk through the world thinking our perspective is reality.
Yes.
And it's not.
That was going to be my next question. I mean, most of the time when I speak to someone about perspective, it always starts from, it goes down in a debate, because most of them want to make us understand that perspective is a reality. And I could differ. I said that I don't agree with that.
It is their reality.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. I had a conversation with a friend the other day, and this is how powerful perspective is, because perspective is, again, developed on your experience, your lived experience. And one of the things he talked about, he's a very wealthy man now, but he talked about his growth and evolution through life. And he said he grew up very, very poor. And he didn't realize he was poor until he went to college. That's perspective.
Yes, perspective.
That you don't understand. The only thing that you've seen is the only thing that you know.
Yes.
And oftentimes we ground ourselves in this. We will die on a sword saying that this is the reality for everybody because that's all we've ever seen.
Yes. But how do you manage? How do you manage, or how are you convinced that you can actually help someone see the reality from your perspective, from your point of view? Because having someone accept that actually what they're living or what they're seeing or what they consider to hold on to as an objective or a big goal is actually their perspective, and try to see it differently. How do you believe that we can convince others that you're maybe just living in a bubble?
You don't. That's the whole point of the book, Lose the Debate.
Yes.
You don't want to convince anybody else of that. You want to create a space where you can share different perspectives and experiences with other people, so hopefully they can hear. But at the end of the day, sometimes someone else's narrow perspective actually allows me to understand something new, allows me to see the world through their lens in a way that I've never seen the world before. And it actually allows me to appreciate my perspective. And how is perspective created? When you are able to have multiple experiences, when you're able to travel, when you're able to have exposure to different things, when you're able to listen to others and hear their different experiences, that's how perspective is actually created.
When I hear all of that, I hear being open.
There you go.
Okay. And then open mind comes from actually experiencing stuff. And if you stick in your little bubble, then that's a big problem. I have a 12-year-old, and I often say my biggest wish, my biggest desire would be for her to travel the world. Having her travel the world would give her a chance to see things on a different level, from a different view, from a different perspective.
Absolutely.
And just don't believe in just what you see. And, you get comfortable. And for you, that's the reality. And I can agree. And I smile when I read your sentence here when we talk about emotional intelligence, but also and successful dialogues.
Yes.
Why? The simple reason, because having these conversations are essential.
Absolutely.
Having these conversations helps you grow.
Yes.
Having these conversations actually helps you as well to realize that Dr. Summer Allen is human.
Absolutely.
And there's a perspective or an idea of her that I have that goes beyond what I see.
Absolutely.
What do you think about it?
Oh, absolutely. I do a lot of executive coaching for leaders, politicians, even celebrities. And that start off with saying that I am human and I will share with you my human experiences, right? Because I think that helps people understand that this is a process. Growth is a process. Really developing and growing our perspective and getting outside of our comfort zones is a process. And so the best way to do that is to model that behavior and share those experiences so that people can feel safe doing that. We get caught up in this perfectionist mindset. I have to live up to this. I have to be a certain Dr. Summer.
And I was going to say that, but do you know that in everything that we're doing, and I'm going to stick to you, Dr. Summer Allen, and people look at you, they're actually envisioning, that you have it easy.
Yes.
That she's speaking like that today. She did not experience what I'm experiencing today, and then we turn the story around.
Right.
How do we, at what level, where do we reach another person at, because in order for us to connect with someone, we have to reach them somewhere. And how do you do that?
You acknowledge that truth. You acknowledge that truth. I can honestly say when people have said that, because that has come up, well, you don't know, you haven't gone through this, you didn't grow up this way. And what is my response? You're right. I didn't. And so help me understand what that looks like. Let's walk through that so that I can expand my perspective and really understand so that we can have a conversation about that and we can work through that.
Now I truly understand why our friend in common said that it was important that we meet and that we have this interview, because one of the reason that, the main reason why I said, let me create a platform, of course, by the name of Dare to Evolve, but it's a platform that actually gives you an opportunity to share your reality, your truth. A lot of my friends, as I exchange with them, I tell them, in order to get help, you first need to admit that you need help. And needing help actually means that you need to know and be honest with self. Allow yourself to feel, trust the process, and know that, you know what, it's okay because I'm human.
There you go.
And as more as I hear you speak, I'm smiling and I'm actually rejoicing. I think if you can see inside of me, you'll be seeing some backflips. I can't do backflips, but
Okay, yeah.
But it is so important to know that genuine conversation helps.
Absolutely.
Removing this mask of this pretending that everything is okay helps. The taboo conversations helps.
Absolutely.
And I'm grateful for people like you and myself, because then this shows that we actually are human, because I at times I don't believe that they see us.
I agree. And, one of the things that I always like to point out in this work, a lot of this is generational and cultural. We've been taught not to have certain conversations, not to share things. You don't talk about stuff outside the house. It's been ingrained in us. And so we have to unlearn those behaviors. We have to unlearn that mindset, because what that tells us is you can't be yourself and authentic, and you can't tell your real story to the rest of the world. You have to keep that stuff to yourself. But you said it earlier, and I just loved it. You said you keep pushing stuff under the rug. One day you're going to trip over all that stuff under that rug.
Definitely.
Because that's the thing about emotional intelligence. It speaks to the emotion. And what it tells us is emotions do not go anywhere if they have not been dealt with.
Yeah. Sometimes, I don't know for you, but at times you can have these flashbacks.
Oh, yeah.
And what we need to learn as well, that there are certain traumas or certain things that just we have chosen very long time ago to just throw away them, but in unconsciously, for the fact that, again, we never dealt with it, and because it's so much pain,
Absolutely.
or because it brought shame to the family name, or whatever it may be, because something like that should not happen to someone like me.
Right.
But someone like me, above all, is human. And I think that um, I'm longing to really get in depth in your book, because I believe there must be some chapters where we're going to hit the nail on the head, continue to do so we can understand the key and the importance of really being vulnerable with self.
Absolutely. Because that's the first key. When we talk about even just having the courageous conversations, you have to unpack, what are my experiences in this topic that I am passionate about, that may come up, that may trigger me. Because if I go into this conversation unaware of self, then I'm a ticking time bomb.
That's so true. You know, I was just flipping the book, right? And I got to the back when you said, you was asking a question, actually. And I was sitting here and I was like, if someone actually really takes the time and read the book inside out, and I advise everyone, if you're going to go on a journey of self-investment, do it fully.
Absolutely.
Trust the process and don't try to skip chapters, because you definitely will not get to where you need to get at. And here you said, when in conversation with someone, are there topics or behaviors that cause you to shut down, say something you didn't mean, or act outside of your normal character? And you're going to tell me if I'm right, but when I read this, the first thing that came to mind is that you first, if you're not entwined, like I said again, with yourself and knowing what ruffle your feathers, then someone can use that against you. If you don't know exactly, well, why did I just get upset because someone just paid me a compliment?
Right.
Or someone said something that I was not expected. How do you, in all of this, when you ask that question, what was your thought behind that?
That is definitely covered in the chapter it's a framework, an actor model framework. And that's an emotional regulation. And so it's called the R for regulation. And so when we talk about emotional regulation, that is when you are triggered. So the T is in triggered. So that is when someone says something or does something that triggers you. And then you have to figure out, how do you regulate that emotion? When it comes to those moments, what we really walk a person through is the proactive work of identifying what your triggers are. Now, you won't unpack them all, but if I can walk into a conversation knowing, okay, I have an insecurity about this, or I'm really sensitive about this, or I'm really passionate about this, or when someone says something like this, I might take it the wrong way. If I can at least proactively know, guess what I'm able to do in that moment? I can then regulate it.
Yes. So you're actually having control of a situation because you allow yourself to figure out what are your triggers. Something else that when I'm just going through this briefly, it's first of all, too much. When we're speaking to someone or when we are going through something, we're actually always anticipating what someone is going to answer. We are actually anticipating their response to thing or their behavior. And when we don't get the answer that we want, then we shut down.
Absolutely.
Have you seen that already?
Oh, absolutely. Because it goes to the curiosity. Everything is grounded in curiosity. So anytime you feel that feeling, anytime you have that experience, what I tell people is ask the question, what happened? What was said? And what am I feeling? So before you respond, think that through, feel the emotion and say, okay, I am triggered. I want to shut down. I want to escape. I want to feel anger. I want to say something. Pause. Give yourself a moment to breathe. As what was said, what happened, and how am I feeling? And then in that process, then you can identify, was something done that was malicious? Because oftentimes it's a story we told ourselves. It's what we told ourselves that another person meant by what they said or by what they did. We never even asked the question. We might feel the emotion, but we never say, you said this the other day, or you said this a few minutes ago. What did you mean by that?
I said, recently again, I'm doing some work on myself and getting ready for this platform, Dare to Evolve. I said, you know what? If you have something to tell me, tell it to me. If you have something to ask me, ask me. I'm done with trying to figure out what's in your mind. And someone that I know very well, as we exchange, he will constantly say, can you stop putting a tone to a message that someone sends you? Because then you're in your own head. You're actually anticipate and have a conversation with self.
Yeah.
Okay, because it all depends on the level of frustration you're on or what kind of day you're having.
Yes.
And I'm actually gonna put some capital letters in there. I'm gonna put some point d'exclamation, non, point d'interrogation, question marks in there. I'm gonna have all of that going on when you're just maybe in the middle of a podcast and you just answered quickly. And here I am at home going on with a whole tantrum because didn't you see how Dr. Summer Allen just spoke to me?
Right.
How do you now work that around someone in your book? How do you?
That's self-awareness. That's the curiosity of self. That's when you really start asking yourself, okay, was there a fact in what I assumed? Probably not. And so in that, we ask ourselves, okay, have that person given me any past experiences where I should believe that this is what they meant? Yeah. Is there anything in our relationship that makes me believe that this is negative intentions there? And so the curiosity of self is also, what in my past might I be bringing with me that might be allowing me to believe this? Maybe I had a bad boss in the past and this is how they would react, or I was in a past relationship and this is how they would respond. And I'm taking this and putting those two things together. So that curiosity still exists. And so that curiosity of self, that curiosity of others, the assuming positive intentions is one of the biggest things that I work with clients on. What happens if you just assume positive with someone?
Dear, you hit the nail on the head again. Because I said, number one, I don't take anything personal. Number two, when you say that I don't take anything personal, even if it was a positive comment, because sometimes you just need to know that it came from the setting in which that person was in. And sometimes it has nothing to do with you.
Nothing.
Even if someone looks at you and says, Dr. Summer, you look beautiful. Sometimes it's just that reassurance that someone needed for themselves because they're expecting in return that you said, you don't look bad yourself, you know, or you're beautiful. And don't give them that answer.
I love that. You gave it in a positive, but you think about working with people where a spouse comes home and they snap at their partner. Yeah. And the beauty of being able to say, did you have a bad day at work today? Are you okay?
Yes.
Versus, I can't believe you talked to me like that. And then it turns into a whole situation, right? Because if you really think about it, if that person just walks in the house, it's not about you.
It's not about you.
It's not
about you.
Maybe something happened in traffic, at the job. Who knows?
You know, and that's why I take the positive part all the time because it is true.
Yeah.
Because we like to feed our egos. When someone tells you something negative and I tell you don't take it personal, like, oh, they could not be talking about me because that was a negative comment. But I want you to know, even down the line of a positive comment, it has nothing to do with you, and that's hard to understand. And there's another thing that I try my best when I'm encouraging others because of your personality, because of who you are, people will be that you will walk into the room and you will get this attention, or you will open your mouth and people will follow, or you know, there's always something that people would, just when you do something, people would adhere to that. But some people just stay quiet and they don't say anything because they feel small around you, or because simply they just don't feel that they has the same power as you. So I will go down the line of trying to encourage them to never dim their light so that others can shine, you know. And I feel if you have to do that, then your circle is incorrect.
There you go.
Your circle is incorrect, and then that's not helping you grow. That's you minimizing yourself. How do you see that?
I 100% agree with what you just said, and I really appreciate you bringing that up. Because we have to start analyzing the spaces that we're in, because our environments, our friends, our family, they are our soil. Yes. They are the things that feed us, that allow us to grow. And if we're in bad soil, if we have people who encourage us to suppress our emotions or who aren't creating safe spaces for us to be honest and authentic and vulnerable, then we can't evolve. If that is not allowing us to really step outside of our comfort zone and really deal with who we are and really share our real experiences with others, because they're not comfortable with them themselves. And so some point in time, that's where that curiosity kicks in and says, is this the best space for me? And not to say you go out there and leave your friends and family. We're not saying that. That is not what we're saying.
Not at all.
No. Sometimes you just have to understand the landscape that you're in, meet people where they are, set boundaries accordingly, and still allow yourself
Can you
to
say
be,
that again? Can you say that again?
meet people, understand who they are, meet them where they are, But in the process of that, you have to set healthy boundaries so that their mess does not rub off on you.
Yes.
And then in that process, then still allow yourself to grow. Understanding that they might make comments, they might try to do this, but the boundaries will protect you in that process. And you have to realize this has nothing to do with you. This is all about them.
And then you do have some people that will be, okay, I hear you. But when I do that, people will consider me to be selfish because all of a sudden it's like, I'm nonchalant. That's where you at. You know, I have a shirt that I bought. It said, what level are you on today? I'm matching energy. You know, if you don't feel like speaking, it's okay. Let's move. You know, I'm not going to do that. But that you still have people that will come across and feel like, I don't want to do that because it makes people think that I'm selfish. Is it okay to be selfish?
You have to be a little selfish in order to grow, because the process of growth is It's self-reflection, it's self-awareness, it's pouring into self, it's creating an understanding how to be uncomfortable to really push yourself out of your comfort zone in order to grow. All of that is me. That doesn't happen in group, right? That doesn't happen in the spaces of others. That happens in the space of isolation where I'm really reflecting. And so that is a selfish piece where it's like, I have to own this and I have to create those boundaries, which people will call your boundaries selfish. No. It's not selfish to have boundaries. It's not selfish to grow. It's not selfish to want more for yourself. It's not selfish to step outside of your comfort zone. None of that is selfish.
Don't you believe that the work that you're doing, the book that you have written, becomes very much heavy and challenging when everyone today, maybe they're not opening up for the simple fact that everything is now too easy. Everything is on the net. And some people just want a good, I don't know how you say it back home, but people just want a good melee.
Yeah.
They want a good beef. They want to have a story on Dr. Summer Allen that is out here writing books and so forth. I have the first story on her, so I'm ready to share. So people decide not to share. Or the simple fact that, again, we said about the taboo conversation or ruining a family's name or legacy or something, or feeling that you're not going to fit in. Don't you think that that is a challenge that you definitely face today?
Oh, absolutely. I will tell, and I've had to really address that and to be okay with that. And I'll tell people, when you pick up this book, it's not a quick fix. It is not a book that you're going to pick up and probably read in 2 days and be transformed. That is not what's going to happen. It's called a actual practical guide. And what that means is you work through the book.
Yes.
And once you work through the book, you might pick it up. You might take a few days, process through it, and then come back to it. A lot of people take notes. Tons of people say, I need to make a workbook, because you need to work through the different components of the book. And so for a lot of people, like you said, I want a peel, I want a shot, I want a quick fix. But that's not how growth happens.
That's not it at all.
That's not how growth happens.
You know, again, I say people like ourselves, not meaning that we're discriminating or stating that you don't have a voice around the table, you don't have a say, but unfortunately or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, we're actually seen as, they're talking like that today because they never really had an experience that they could actually share or relate to. It has been so easy. What if you were to take one part of your life that made you said, you know what, if I had a practical guide, it would not have taken me so long to be who I am today, or it would have allowed me to trust and open up?
Valerie, great question. And this is where I guess my real vulnerability comes in. A lot of the book, of course, came from research and from the work that I do in corporate spaces. But a lot of other components of the book came from personal relationships. One specifically is I was in a very unhealthy, intimate relationship with someone that I would consider, probably to this day, knowing what I know now, a narcissist. And so going through those experiences over years and not having the right words, not being able to understand what the other person was doing or what I was feeling and why things just didn't always make sense. And it was just chaos and confusion. And so a lot of what drove my research was trying to figure out what is happening. What is going on here? And so when people say, like, no, you haven't had enough experience in life to tell somebody else what to do, and I probably haven't. I haven't gone through everything, nor do I tout that I've gone through everything. But I can say that the book provides research, it provides practical examples, and it provides a lot of my lived experience to be able to, I think, give some credibility to it. And as long as I keep having these conversations with others, my perspective continues to grow, my knowledge continues to grow. And I don't want to know every single aspect of every single challenge in the world. That's for everybody to delve into.
Exactly. And I'm happy that you shared that time, because I can see that it is something still that who knows. And if you went through a relationship like that, then you would understand just what you're speaking about. And it is good that we can take something, accept it, work on it, transmit it, so that others can avoid that pain.
There you go.
That now we are all responsible and have a journey and have a calling, and we all must fulfill that. And I wish that on everyone, that you manage to fulfill that journey, that you play that part in the script, in this whole movie that we call life, because then only then you can and will become a better version of yourself. But in St. Martin, we have a tendency of saying that we don't open much because, St. Martin is small. The people are small-minded and so forth. And I have a hard time explaining or saying that's an excuse. And but you wouldn't understand. But we capture that part already with people saying that. But I really need us to understand that it's not about people being small-minded or the place being too small. It's actually you.
It's you.
It's actually you not being at a place in your life where you're actually accepting that I need to work on that because something is wrong. Absolutely. And it's actually stopping me from moving on. It's actually, I'm taking that same trauma, I'm taking that same relationship or those errors or that I never actually dealt with, and I take it over, those baggages, to another relationship.
Absolutely.
Or to another job. And then you wonder why you keep doing the same thing. Someone had to look at me in my eyes and said, don't you think that such and such in your life is a pattern?
There you go. You got to recognize those patterns, and you can't be slave to your environment. You can't be slave to the experiences that you have. You have to understand you have a certain level of agency in your life. You have the power of choice. You can choose what you want despite what's going on around you. And I think what really helps people get to that point is when you can show them in other aspects of their life where they've done it. So despite this, you actually did this. Despite this, you actually did this. I mean, you start showing them like, you actually do these things, but in this aspect of your life, you stick to a pattern.
Yeah.
Because it's usually very specific aspects of life where it's like, no. This is safe. I'm sticking to this pattern. But in other aspects, I may be really open. And so that's in the book where we talk about this fixed versus growth mindset. There are certain aspects of our lives where we're fixed, where we believe this is who I am. This is what it's going to be. But then there's other aspects where we're more than happy to be open. And so where do we have those components where we are fixed, and where do we have those components where we're growth? And how do we create more of those growth moments?
There's one last point I would love to hit on, because every time someone talk about investing in themselves or coming face to face with their reality and they said, okay, I had a problem with this one, or we're no longer in a relationship, but you know what, I handled it. But their handling stuff means that I'm going to block you. I'm just going to block you in my phone.
You. Yes.
I'm going to ghost you because I don't want you talking to me. And if I know that you're on this path, I'm going to go on the other road because if I see you, I'm frustrated.
Yes.
What would be your advice to them? Or is this a sign of, okay, you're over it or you're healed? What would be your advice here? How do you see this?
So I will tell people, unless you're escaping like an abusive relationship and you're going, no contact, doing that is actually very unhealthy. It's not addressing the situation. If you find that you are unable to have a conversation with someone, that's when you need to go curious and be curious with yourself and ask yourself, what am I holding on to? What am I not dealing with that is not allowing me to really engage with the other person and just share with them? Even if we end the relationship, it's still worth the dialogue. At least I can share with you, this is how you made me feel, and this is why I'm no longer choosing to be in this relationship.
You see, you said something again earlier where you said it is important that we meet persons where they are. And doing that actually helps.
Absolutely.
It definitely helps. And
it removes judgment.
Yeah.
That's what it is. If I can meet you where you are, what that means is I'm not judging you for where you are. I understand who you are. I understand why you're this way. I understand maybe you have some traumas. Maybe you have some emotional immaturity. Maybe you haven't had a lot of experience in certain areas. That's okay. So it makes all of us unique, right?
And I tell them what happens is that we're actually always trying to fit a situation, a person, or someone in a permanent position when they were just supposed to be temporary.
Right.
So I really don't get why do we continue beating our head, beating up on ourselves? And the first thing is that, you know what? I'm going to cut you off. I'm going to do this. And then when I see you, because if I don't see you, it's okay. But when I finally get face to face with you, that anger comes up.
Because it's unmet expectations. I tell so many people, you might not be in the right relationship with this person. They might not be a good intimate partner for you, but they might be a best friend.
A best friend.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Again, because you put them in the wrong box.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes I say I want to be like a man. Men actually place things in a box. Yeah. You know, if you want to talk about love today, I open that box. When we finish, we close it back.
Close it back up.
Then we're going to open the box to talk about a car.
Yeah.
Then let's close it back. Please don't open too many boxes at once. They can't handle that.
Nope.
You know, and again, you know what? And that comes to, I'm going to meet you where you're at. You're talking love. Let's open a love box. And what's wrong with that? So again, that means that I'll meet you where you're at. So you needs to be in a friend category. I'll keep you in a friend category. But we are constantly trying to put someone or a situation in a permanent position when it's just meant to be temporary.
And we're mad at them for being who they are.
Exactly. We see their truth, and because we have this makeup in our mind, because that person
story
needs to stay.
Correct.
And here we are. Man, I can stay talking to you all night long. So before we wrap it up, I would love for you to give me something about your book that you want us to hold on to. And I know we spoke a lot about the first part, and it's important. It is to know when we talk about the fact that, you know, self-investment, you actually, that curiosity that is created, but that curiosity in self.
Yeah.
Just give me a sum up about your book before we just wrap things up.
I want to sum it up, but I also want to tie it to everything that you are doing on this platform, because I think it is a beautiful kind of marriage of the two. One of the things that you really focus on is sharing stories and experiences to heal and develop community, right? Empowering one another through the reality of life. Well, in order for us to do that, we have to do that self-work. We have to increase our self-awareness. We have to be curious with ourselves. We have to really dive into our historical context. And so when you think about that, that's heavy work. And that's why I love the fact that you say dare to evolve, because that's a call to action for ourselves. And it takes intentionality to do that. The thing about evolution is it happens oftentimes in the world, whether you want it to happen or not. It's very passive how the ecosystem evolves, how the trees and the atmosphere and us as humans, how we evolve. But what if we took intentionality to say, I want to evolve in a different way? And so what this book allows you is a guide to make an intentional decision to say, in my relationships, in myself, I want to evolve. I want to have different conversations. I want to be more aware. And in that, I think, is the beauty of our ability to grow.
With that being said, I'm going to have you do a call to action. What are you daring to evolve?
I'm daring to evolve, and I love when you ask me this question. I've actually thought about it over the past few days. I'm daring to evolve in my courage. Now, I know, doctorate and doing all these things, but in the space of vulnerability and sharing, within community to grow, there's always a moment where you have that imposter syndrome, or you just don't feel that you're ready or that you should be in that space. And so my dare to myself to evolve is to own where I am, to own the next step, and to own the growth.
Wow. I can just stay here with you all night. I must say that with that being said and all that was said today, I'm really taking this part with me where you talk about curiosity, but curiosity in self. Curiosity in self is important. Curiosity in self helps you realize where you are and at what stage and what point you are in your life. And only with that, then you can truly say that you're advancing. So I encourage you to invest in yourself. Thank you very much.
Thank you
This
so
was
much,
wonderful,
Emily.
my darling.
Thank
oh
you.
my gosh, we hit the nail on the head with this one, you know.